When was the last time you replied to someone from the spam folder? Google and Outlook hate it when you send cold emails. In 2024, it's easier to change offices than it is to change domains.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Pod filled with marketing and leadership tips on launching and growing your business with your host, Deanne Mora.
Today on the podcast, I'll be speaking with Namit Jindal, co-founder of Deliverability Ninja, an agency specializing in cold sales emails. Namit is a graduate of Indiana University and has worked with a number of startups prior to taking the entrepreneurial journey himself. If you think sales emails don't work, or if you know they do, but you're having trouble seeing results from your campaigns, then this episode is for you. Namit, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Let's start with your backstory. How did you get into email marketing?
For sure. So, always been a fan of the entrepreneurial journey, grew up wanting to be an entrepreneur. In my first company, worked with really smart people. I firsthand saw the power of outbound. So, saw the company grow to like a 200 million plus acquisition, and a lot of the revenue came from email outbound. So, obviously, I saw it work firsthand, trusted it. In my second company, I was the one leading charge, and we had very aggressive revenue targets. So, the goal was not use paid ads. So, I leaned on the one thing I had seen work in the past, cold outbound. And surprisingly, we got 70 meetings in 2 months. So that was amazing. Like our calendars were full, a lot of revenue generated from outbound. And I realized, okay, this is what I really love doing. Getting the 7 meetings had been absolutely amazing. So I took a deep dive into the industry and never looked back.
That's great. I'm sure our listeners know that you can buy email lists out there. And in theory, you could just buy a list and upload it to a tool like MailChimp and send out an e-blast. But why might that not work?
So cold email works really differently from what most people think. It is easy to say, yes, I will buy that list, load it to a tool like MailChimp. But that statement alone has so many problems. First thing is like, A, how do you know that email list is actually verified? Second, talking about the email list, is that actually the people that you want to sell to? Or can you even sell to them? Are they qualified? I promise you, everyone wants a full calendar until they get a full calendar. Like it's one of the worst things ever when you have meetings lined up and you're just disqualifying every single one on the call. So anyone you reach out to, 90 to 95% of that list needs to be qualified. That's the problems that begin with like email lists itself. The second problem is that MailChimp was never meant for cold email. Mail is meant for promotional emails, transactional emails. So emails are never going into the inbox folder. When was the last time you replied to someone from the spam folder?
Only if I think somebody said, did you get my email? And I didn't. It's about the only time I think I ever look in my spam folder. No, you're absolutely right. And so another challenge when sending cold emails, I would imagine, is if you're sending them from the same domain as your website. If too many people are flagging your email as spam, then we know that that can actually hurt your website domain. So we hear about marketers talking about doing things like warming up a domain. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So the harsh reality of cold email is when you cold email like 100 people, a few of them tend to mark you as spam. Like some people just like it. Another thing is that Google and Outlook hate it when you send cold emails. Like they want to get away from cold email, even though there are reports that certain subsidiaries of Google cold emails, but we're not going to get into that. So what happens is when you start email from your primary domain, like your main domain, eventually your domain starts getting flagged repeatedly and it gets permanently going to spam. So the people you're talking about who said, did you get my email? Likely sent cold emails in the past and their domain got flagged. In 2024, it's easier to change offices than it is to change domains.
Isn't that the truth?
You probably do not want to send cold emails from a primary domain because like your domain will get flagged sooner than later.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So as we're talking about spam, so we should probably address CAN spam laws. So what can and can't you do when sending cold emails?
So CAN spam is one pretty basic. Don't deceive your audience. Make sure that they understand it's a cold email. Make sure they understand what you're sending, offering. Honor opt-out requests. Give a person like a way to opt out and give your address. Like these are like, apart from the give your address part, which is like an addition in your signature, everything else is basic stuff that your cold email should include anyway. So CAN spam is one of the easiest to follow laws. That's all that CAN spam really says.
Okay. All right. So let's say, go to the next step here. So let's say that you have your list and you've warmed up the domain. And let's say somehow we know that it's a good list. You've warmed up the domain. What do you need to do before you hit send? What are the steps that are involved involved in preparing a cold email campaign?
Let's take a step back. You get the email list. Before you warm up the domain, what you need to do is you need to GoDaddy, Cloudflare, Namecheap, Pokemon, whatever, and buy additional domains. So don't warm up your own primary domain. So for example, like we're deliverabilityninja.com, so we'll just buy a domain called getdeliverabilityninja.com or tryabilityninja.com. And that's the one you use to send cold emails. So now you have an email list, you have secondary domains are warmed up. The next thing that you need to do is craft your email. Make sure that your email is compelling. So some basic points I would say is keep it less than 100 words unless you really know what you're doing. So if you're new to this, that's the best way to cut out fluff. Make sure it's less than 100 words.
That's really short.
Yeah, it's
right. That's really short.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be 4 lines. Like no one cares about what award you won in which some random state unless
don't tell your whole company story.
Oh, absolutely not. Like you don't even need to, like I've seen a lot of emails which I would consider below average for a lack of better word, like to be like, hey, I'm the head of sales at XXX company. Like you just wasted 10 words.
Well, as soon as you say that, as soon as you tell me you're the head of sales, I'm out. So
even if you're the founder, like you don't need to tell anyone all of that stuff. That's already in your signature. So cut out of all the fluff, less than 100 words. Make sure you have a no-brainer offer. That's going to be super helpful.
And so give me an example. What might a no-brainer offer look like?
So this stems from, there's this guy, Alex Hormozy. It stems from his teachings. So he had a book on this called 100 Million Offers. A no-brainer offer is an offer so good, people feel stupid saying no to. I'll give you my offer as an example here, right? We go to sales leaders. Ideally, they're already sending cold emails. And we tell them, hey, we will double your open rates and reply rates within 90 days, or you guys don't pay.
That's pretty compelling. So I can't possibly go wrong. So no risk sounds like that's also a part of no-brainer.
Yeah, ideally you're maximizing their chance of success. Like you're giving them a time frame. So it's like a whole formula here where it's like maximum is your offer, or the no-brainer part of it is directly proportional to how likely they believe they will be successful, how much it's inversely proportional to how much time it will take, and then the risk reversal over there, which is, hey, you guys don't pay if that doesn't happen.
So how do you feel about these offers, services companies that'll say a free consultation or a free evaluation, or is that compelling enough, or you need to go deeper?
You need to go deeper because like you need to tell people what that actually entails and how they will benefit from them. Every sales call is a consultation. So you can package a sales call however you want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's a sales call. Now, if someone like Tony Robbins or someone really famous like Gary Vaynerchuk or someone, they said, okay, like it's a free consultation, I understand, because like it's super valuable to get 15 minutes of that time. But you are trying to sell a product to me. Your free consultation is 15 minutes of you asking me questions and 15 minutes of you pitching me. So like, how is that a consultation?
True. So let's look at some different industries and we'll just brainstorm a little bit, go down this path. We have a number of listeners who are attorneys. So if you're an attorney, what might your no-brainer offer look like? And let's get specific. Let's say you're you're a business attorney. What kind of no-brainer offer would get somebody's attention?
Okay. So talk to me about the 4 main things that a business attorney can do. So let's say, what are 4 things you as a business owner would use business attorneys for?
Okay. So I'm gonna use a business attorney to look at my contracts and make sure that they're well worded in case I ever need them, just so I don't get into trouble later. I might get them to do a research and register a name for me, maybe, so that I don't put all this effort into my brand and then lose my name down the road. I might get them to just check something that I'm sending to make sure that if it's one of those complex situations where it could potentially go wrong, I might want my attorney to take a look at it. Maybe I want my business attorney to help me chase down a debt. So those are just off the top of my head 4 things that I might use a business attorney for.
So I love that. So the good part about being an attorney yourself is when someone engages you once, they're more likely repeat customer, and then you get referrals and stuff, right? Like all these things come up repeatedly. This is not just a one time. So the hardest challenge for a business attorney is to get their foot in the door. Get them to get you as a business owner to use an attorney once. So what their no offer / lead magnet would be, and this was more on the lead magnet lines of the offer, but the offer.
We're going to talk about that. I want to learn more about lead magnets as well. Let's talk about the offer.
So like the offer, so something they could pitch you would be like, hey, we will revisit all your past contracts for free, or let us look at your co-founder agreement for free to make sure everything is airtight. And once you engage with them, once you actually get talking, once you get on the call, like then that's more of a lead magnet, but then you like have that customer.
So now I can get a feel for what it would be like to work with you, and I'm more likely to engage with you. Maybe I'm sure that our business attorneys listening are cringing at the thought of, I will review all of your contracts for free, but maybe you review one agreement for free.
Absolutely. And looking at most companies, like you can what their agreements are. If they have a lot of employees, they are likely have those employee agreements. If they have a co-founder, they have those agreements. I'm sure like attorneys know a lot more, but you can pick out any one agreement that is there for sure and do it that.
And maybe pick one where, based on your expertise, you're likely to find holes in it. Because the idea is if you review it and everything's perfect, then there's nowhere to go from that. But if you review it, it should be something where, or maybe would you give them, I guess it would be a lot of work to set up a new agreement, but maybe you give them an outline or some ideas for a particular type of agreement, or we'll review the agreements that you have in place and we will give you a checklist. Perhaps now I'm going into lead magnets, we'll give you a checklist of all the agreements that you should have as a business owner, perhaps.
Yeah, that's lead magnet. And like I started talking about lead magnets, so they're on me. But
we're getting into that part now.
But for an attorney, like an offer that now that I'm thinking about it could be like, if you don't solve your problem, you don't pay, or something like that. Could be super basic, because what an attorney does is super clear. Or for example, like if there's an attorney that specializes in contracts, so you niche down. So your attorney can be, if you're satisfied, write a new contract within 24 hours, or you don't pay. Something like that, which solves the problem, is such a no-brainer.
So just the idea that you're delivering something of value and you're putting guarantee behind it.
It's needed for new attorneys. Like a lot of people, unless you have a lot of case studies, like a guarantee is the tipping point. So for us too, like when we get on sales calls or like even an email, if anyone mentions the guarantee, I know they're sold. I know they're going to buy, because like they've just been tipped over by the guarantee.
Yeah. So it has to be something also, I would assume, that when you're looking at what your competitors offer, that maybe they're not offering the same guarantee or the same kind of a no-brainer offer, because otherwise you're not really standing out. Would that be correct?
Yeah, in a way, yes. Obviously, like the bigger the market, the bigger the supply, the bigger the demand. That's how like the forces of economics end up. So yes, you will have people with similar offers, and you don't need to go crazy with trying to differentiate yourself, because there are only so many people. There are so many people, and there are only few people you can take.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we're talking about lead magnets, let's talk about some more examples and industry of your choice. What types of things are people finding valuable today that will make them give you their contact information? And should a lead magnet be gated or ungated? And what does that mean?
Yeah. So two kinds of lead magnets, right? Like you can look at lead magnets from a marketer's perspective, where all you need is the email. But from a salesperson's perspective, because these are cold emails, you want lead magnet to be like that trust building aspect. So you already have that email. That's why you're cold emailing them, but you're offering a lead magnet instead of pitching a hard service. So someone like attorneys, right? And these contracts and all that stuff is more of a lead magnet. Like a lead magnet is like a complete solution to a small problem. So what I mean by that is attorneys solve the 4 problems that you discussed. So that was contracts, debts, other issues that they have, right? These are 4 different problems. If you give them a lead magnet, be like, hey, free co-founder agreement. Hey, we'll check your co-founder agreement for free. That's a complete solution to that small, tiny problem. Mm-hmm. But once you like look at that actual agreement, and then you see like health insurance and you see all that stuff, that exposes them to multiple problems that you can solve. So that's what like an amazing lead magnet is. Ideally, a lead magnet, like the best lead magnet, is something that your competitors charge for, and it needs to be really good.
And then how would that differ? How would a lead magnet and how would a no-brainer offer differ if you are in services sales versus product sales?
Interesting. So product sales are when you talk about a no-brainer offer in product sales, that tends to be a little less relevant than services, because like product is like relatively clearer value exchange. If you're a CRM, or if you're actually selling like a SaaS B2B product, you have a relatively clearer value exchange. Lead magnets, on the other hand, can be anything which like expose your prospects to more problems that you solve.
Okay.
So it's less
Free.
ebooks, free trials and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. So we need to, so it sounds like the lead magnet is a really key part of a successful cold outreach campaign, because we need to think through not only what is going to really be perceived as highly valuable, but what will open the door for me to then also sell more services, essentially.
Yeah. Once people start trusting you, like, 'cause cold email trust is a big factor that's lacking, like they're very likely to buy from you. So
Okay.
if you were part of an industry, like a completely blue ocean industry where you are the only person selling a particular kind of service, you're one of the very few people that can solve a problem, just hard pitch. You don't even need to make lead mag. But when you start going into competitive industry where both the demand and supply are high, or maybe like supply is very high, now you're competing, that's when lead magnets do wonders.
That makes sense. And then let's go back to the gated versus ungated, what that means, which should you use? Because I've heard thoughts on both sides of that particular argument. So what are yours?
When you're sending a cold, so this is how you send a lead magnet, right? Like the gated, ungated concept doesn't apply to cold email. So let's say I cold email you. I will be like, hey, Dan, we help companies do XXX. I created a document on how you can solve this problem. Mind if I send it over to you? That's gonna be my cold email format. So like when I send you a document, I'm most likely gonna take you to a landing page, which has the document along with my Calendly link.
Okay.
So there's no concept of gated, ungated, because I know you're the one who has opened it, because I have trackers on my web.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about gated, ungated, this would be something that you would have on your website. And when we're saying gated, ungated, so gated meaning I have to get your contact information before I will send you something, versus ungated meaning you can just have it. I have something of value. Maybe I'm going to follow up with a remarketing campaign if you come on my website, but I'm not actually going to capture your contact information. So that would be more about building your email list then, correct?
Yeah, that's more if you want to build a newsletter list or something. And you can always, like, if it's valuable, like even after you want to say, mind if I send it over or something, you want to gate it, it really doesn't make that much of a difference.
Okay.
Like to
All
the
right.
net final score. Yeah.
Then let's walk through another example. Let's take, and I know I'm picking on attorneys today, but I know we have a number of them as our listeners. So let's think about an estate planning attorney, and let's say that they want to meet CPAs, because CPAs are clearly involved in your financial planning, your tax planning, and that if you're planning your taxes, you should be thinking strategically also about your estate, because there's obviously some linkages with tax planning. So what are the steps? So we're the estate planning attorney. We want to meet CPAs. So what are the steps that we should take in planning a cold email campaign?
So the first is email list, relatively easy. Just get a list of all the CPAs there are in the United States or wherever you want to look at that. Like, you can get that email list.
Okay, and let me stop you there. So just for our listeners who might not be aware, how do you get that kind of an email list? How do you know it's real?
Yeah, so a lot of databases out there. I would imagine something basic like ZoomInfo and Apollo.io has a list of CPAs. Definitely the bigger companies would be there. If you know websites, so typically like real estate brokers, CPAs, they have specialized where they will put their own contact lists out. So you can scrape all those websites. If CPAs, any CPAs that exist on LinkedIn, you can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator as well.
Okay.
So these four
So
things.
we have the list, so we're good. So now they're real CPAs. We have so then go on. Comes next.
Yeah. The second thing that comes is qualifying those CPAs. Do you want to talk to every single CPA? Do you want to talk to CPA in a particular state? Do they need to be a part of a bigger firm with a certain amount of revenue? And do any of these qualifications qualify or disqualify a CPA? Maybe they're not worth the time if they're too small. Maybe they're not a great fit for particular reasons.
Right. So we're segmenting our list, and now we know we have our actual target. These are people we really want to talk to. So then what do we do?
Then the next thing is like, hey, let's craft an email to send to these guys. And I'm assuming like all our backend infrastructure, your domains are ready, you have everything warmed up, right? At this point, like all of that stuff, what we spoke about in the beginning is done. So the next step is crafting an email. How can we give these guys something of value, right? Why they care about our emails? How are they benefiting from getting an attorney on their team or a state attorney on their team? So that's the mindset I would go in before writing that email. And every single email I write, my basic thing is like, what are they getting out of applying to this email?
So really understand, like anything with marketing, really understand your target audience and what is going to get their attention. What do they need? What are their pain points?
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I don't know the industry super well, but for estate estate attorneys, can you offer one client for free? Maybe you can give them like 50% commission or something like that, like 50% of your commission or something for the first few clients, just to get that relationship going. And once
you offer that at the beginning, or are you, so as you're trying to meet the CPA, are you're leading with that no-brainer offer in that first email?
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Always.
Then are there follow-up emails, or is this just a one shot?
So this would depend on how big your target market is. But in the case of CPAs, I would imagine there are more than 3,000 CPAs across the United States, at least.
At least.
Yeah. So sending 2 to 3 follow-ups is more than enough. Do not do the 6, 7 follow-up thing, especially
At
with
that point, if they're not interested, they're not going to be, if they're not interested after 3, they're not going to be interested at 6.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like you're just wasting your emails and people are more likely to get annoyed and mark you as spam in your 4th and 5th email. So now for some of our clients,
are these like every couple of days, once a week? How often do we have to hit them to know if they're going to be interested?
Every 3 days is standard. Like not much data. Like we've played around, it doesn't really change that much. 3 days more than enough. And then you can reuse your list every 6 months.
Oh, okay. So now I'm assuming, cleaning our list from anyone who might have bounced or anyone who may have said that they're not interested. So now we've got a list of non-responses. And then 6 months later, do we run the identical campaign? Do we come up with a new idea for a no-brainer offer, or how do we handle it?
Yeah, your offer can stay the same, how your angle can change. So initially, like we were saying that, hey, like you might have some people who need estate attorneys, right? How about we help you? You can talk about, hey, have you considered pitching estate attorney services to your clients? That could be something you can bundle. So like the angle with which you're approaching the email changes. The core offer is estate attorney services.
Okay. And I would imagine that subject line is really important. We might want to, are we playing around with that in the first round? Are we doing any A/B testing, or we're putting it out?
You'd be surprised the subject line's not important at all.
Interesting.
As long as
what kind of subject line is going to make me open that email? What are some
almost
of the
every subject line, as long as I don't outrightly tell you it's a sales thing. Especially like a lot of majority of business professionals open most of their emails, especially if they're not mixing personal and business emails. Like that business in bigger companies are like business emails separate. They're clicking into almost every single thing. Now, the only goal is make it sound like it comes from a customer or it comes from a team member, but you don't need to go overboard. Something as bad as quick question also works.
Really? Okay. Yeah. What else works? Just throw out some ideas.
Like for attorneys, it could literally be like CPA dash first name. Like in the example, like you can literally write CPA dash first, attorney dash first name, estate attorney. That's like stuff like that. And you don't need to go overboard. That's all you need.
Okay. All right. I know a lot of email tools like Outlook and that are going to show you the preview of whatever the email is anyway. So you're jumping to the content, I would imagine, and not just the subject line. And then on those subsequent emails, is it just hey, did you see my last email? Or how are we crafting those couple of follow-ups?
You should definitely be using your follow-ups to your advantage and not wasting email space. So never say stuff like just checking in. Did you see my last email? Did you get my last email? Like start throwing in testimonials. If you remember, our first email was only 100 words. So there was stuff you probably wanted to say but could not say. Make it like like I already gave you that information. Maybe this person needs more information. Talk about the particular CPAs you have worked with in the past. Talk about how you've helped them. Maybe give them a case study. Talk about other benefits of working with you.
That makes sense. Okay, so you're telling the story, but you're just telling it over 3 different emails spread out days apart each. Okay.
Exactly.
And then, so all of this, obviously, we're trying to lead to people opening the email, people clicking on the email, people engaging. What are the typical open and reply rates that you've experienced, and how does that compare maybe to a couple of other industries? What's normal?
Yeah. So every industry is different, obviously. I will, for the sake of simplicity, categorize everything into 2. One is small and medium businesses. So anywhere under 100 employees. And the other one are like slightly bigger. So anywhere under 200 employees is small, medium, and plus is bigger. For under 100, I would assume, or the data shows for us, like the average is like 45 to 60% open rates, even higher, actually 45 to 70% open rates. And reply rates are anywhere around 5%.
Okay.
Not including our out of office. Yeah.
And what have you seen with, in terms of the open rates? Because there are, as I mentioned, there's email browsers, obviously. You have Outlook that'll show you all the previews. Are those counting as open? So do we know for sure if we're seeing that an email was opened, do we know that it was read, or was that potentially just the email software almost reading the email for you, but the person didn't read it?
Yeah, I know for certainty some of the opens are not done by humans, but that's the industry standard. That happens for everything. When I say, okay, we see like a 70% open rate, that's not a true 70% open rate. But if you see a 30% open rate and I see a 30% open rate, there is a delta between us. So open rate is a relative metric where you can see two email campaigns and be like, okay, this is performing better than the other, but it's not a hard metric where I look at my email campaign, see 70% and get happy that 70 out of 100 people opened it.
Okay, that makes sense. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about was AI. So AI is obviously impacting all areas of marketing today. How have you been using AI in your process?
Yeah, let's go back to the example that I can show you that, right? Like we're emailing CPAs about estate attorneys. Okay. And now, how would your pitch change to that CPA? It might change depending on how big that company is, right? It might change depending on if the CPA specializes in like certain kind of businesses, or if they have like particular specialties where they work with like small, and I don't know if I'm guessing estate attorneys are like particular, those CPAs work with like particular kinds of individuals, but like your pitch might change depending on certain factors, is the point. So if you were to do that, you can ask AI to create a very particular response or very particular personalized line based on what the CPA specializes in. Right? Does that make sense? Do you want me to give you a different example?
So as an example, let's say we're separating our CPAs by, it could be, are they a partner in a CPA firm, or are they a CPA who works in a CPA firm? Maybe it's the size of the firm. So let's just say partner, non-partner, just for the purpose of this example. Would you write the email for a partner and then put it into ChatGPT and say, rewrite this as if this particular CPA is not a partner, or how would you do that?
Okay, so we don't use ChatGPT to write entire emails. We use ChatGPT to write a section of the email. So what I would tell ChatGPT is like, hey, read the title of this prospect, and since I do estate planning, tell me how it can be relevant for this role. Something like that, where like now we get not just partner, non-partner, we get every single kind of title, and we're giving hyper-personalized responses or hyper-personalized things saying, hey, we can help you this way. And then there's like a ChatGPT line over there.
So does that mean that you're sending, like, each email is different for each recipient?
Exactly.
Okay, so very customized. So it sounds like we're not actually using a mass email tool then, that we're doing this more on a one-to-one basis. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, it's a sequencer. All cold emails are sent one-to-one versus like MailChimp, which is marketing emails sent as a one-to-many. So everything is personalized using dynamic fields.
Okay, so that sounds, if you are using a CRM tool, for example, that you want to do it as an automation rather than a newsletter. So you don't just like mass blast your list all at once, but you have a drip campaign and you just feed people into the drip campaign.
Absolutely. These are all drip campaigns.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Very fascinating. I think there's a lot that our listeners have learned today about email marketing and specifically outbound cold emails. So it sounds like this is something that could be a very valuable part of your marketing strategy today. I think there's probably a number of people who have maybe previously thought that emails were, I think we think a lot of times of emails coming into our inbox as being, why would I spam? Why would I just send more spam emails? But if they are targeted and if they are really offering something that's specifically of value to the recipient, then it sounds like that it's just actually just another part of your sales process that can be quite effective in gaining those contacts and hopefully filling your calendar with people who won't be frustrating.
Yeah, like it's one of the most cost-effective methods too, right? Like it's this versus ads or maybe cold calling, and ads are expensive. Cold calling is like manual work. So you got like, this is like the most automated you can get.
Absolutely. No, it's been very helpful. And Namit, if people want to connect with you, where should they reach out?
I think the best place is on my website. So if it's a business connection, website has a meeting link, just use that. If you just have like specific questions, feel free to message me on LinkedIn and answer all messages there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Namit. I wish you all the best with your business.